Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Mufti. It's been a long time.
It has indeed. All right, Muhammad Umar, we're Farhan. All right, where are you joining us from? Remind us again.
From India, Andhra Pradesh.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah,
You
yeah.
remember?
I do. Absolutely, absolutely. Yaar,
How you doing, Mufti?
I'm good, yaar. Kaisa chal raha hai? What's going on? How are things?
It's been very cold here. It's been freaking cold.
Cold.
Yes, I feel like it's England. It's raining all day.
Wow, isn't it? Oh, yes, of course. It might be is it the kind of monsoon thing that, is it
Yeah,
that or,
exactly.
hmm.
And how's the
Acha.
weather in England?
It's all right here, to be honest. This is, we're in July, so it's good. It's good. I don't actually like it when it's too hot. Not that it gets too hot here. It's only a few days in the year, but I just like it when it's nice. It's bright. There's a nice wind. That kind of, and it's like that. Alhamdulillah, Allah be praised. So, cha, to kya ho raha hai wahan pe? What's going on in India? And what are some thoughts on your preoccupying your precious mind?
Actually, I want to ask you a question. Can we have
Sure.
expectations from our siblings after a certain age? Like, two siblings, they grow together, and one
Mhm.
sibling becomes big, another just end up poor. So it's not the responsibility of the sibling to look after his poor sibling and his kids.
Right. Okay. Good question. So you see, so there is a right. So there is an obligated duty, let's say, from Islam, and then there's a kind of moral duty that we have, which is not obligated in the sense it's not structured, as in we're not told. So there's certain things we are told, let's say, as rules almost, where they lay down for us, like you should respect, let's say, show respect or be respectful to your parents. You should have compassion towards youngsters and respect elders, and you should take care of your parents financially if they need help. Now your siblings are, they're just running concurrently to you. They are independent, they do their own thing. You grow up, you do your thing, let's say, they do their thing. Now, if they happen to be struggling financially, so you in Islam, from one perspective, you are an adult, you are an individual. You are told to, you are responsible for your household, lil bayt, for lidar in Arabic. So you are, Rabbul Dar or Rabbul Bayt. So you're going to take care of your wife, you're going to take care of your children, take care of whoever lives under that roof. So you are not, from this perspective, you are not made responsible to to watch over what your siblings are doing. Because if they're adults, I mean, they're adults, obviously, or your parents watch over them, or they're grown adults. So, from that perspective, one would say, look, Islam has not said to me, I am mandated to do this. However, you see, there is a hadith. Now, I know this hadith has in fact, before we even come to the hadith, the verse of the Quran, وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ, that people who in their wealth is a known haq. This haq is a contingency haq. It's not, Imam Shatibi in his Muwafaqat, he speaks of things that are mandatory, like there's mandates, which he says, iqtida'un, he says certain things are iqtida'i and taba'i. Okay, al-amr iqtida'i wal-amr taba'i. So for example, you have a requisite mandate. You have something that you have to do, and you have certain things which are based on the circumstances. They're circumstantial. They are not generally. They're contingent. So you don't normally need to be sending money to your, let's say, your friends or your siblings or your neighbor or something. But if something befell them and they are in crisis, then this haqq kind of, it appears that you have this right, an obligation, as a moral obligation to stand in and help بقدر المستطاع, whatever you can. Like maybe you can only help a small amount, then a small amount. Maybe you can help more, so more. Maybe, you see, it's قدر المستطاع, but not to be like, in the Good Samaritan story, that a person is, the priest is walking past because he's got to go to his sermon and not help the person. That's even towards a stranger, you have haqqun ma'lum. See, Allah begins haqqun ma'lum lis-sa'ili wal mahrum. That's even to a stranger. فَمَا بَالُكَ بِالْأَقَارِبِ. What do you think about those who are related to you? So I would say there definitely is a contingent obligation, a mandate that appears the moment they become in need. And if you have, then of course, definitely do give. If you have and you can. Obviously, sometimes people don't have. But if you have, obviously, I understand as well, sometimes there is, people do draw a balance. They don't want people to just, kind of like become a leech on them, in the sense that they just always just drain them for these things. People don't like that either. And that's understandable. I get that. But similarly, if you know someone and they're going through a tough time, maybe without their asking, even, don't wait for them to ask, just do if you can. If you think, yeah, this is, nothing for me, I'll just sort this out for them. This is where, you do, and from the unseen, so much risk comes to you. This is synchronicity. It's not cause and effect, but it kind of synchronizes in that way. But yeah, that's what I would
Mufti,
say.
what if they have a bad blood between them? I mean, some siblings they don't talk in
Oh,
years,
they have bad blood between them. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's yeah.
it's common in India and Pakistan.
Yeah,
I
it's common.
Pakistani,
Yeah, it's true. The logo mein hota hai yaar. It's so strange because, when you think about it, you're actually brothers and sisters. It's, from one perspective, it's like you were kids together. Like I find it. I mean, I can understand, like, from a rational perspective, how this is, like, I can understand the happenings, but there's a side of me that always thinks like, wow, okay, why are you not doing something to quash that, to remove that? Why not? Like, just try, to, I get it, sometimes the other person, uh the other the other person may keep stepping away. They may not allow it, but you should still, to some extent, try. A little thing, if you can. Gifts work wonders, but even just being in person, a hug, just a hi, just being, yeah, I do find it, I mean, I understand it because, like you said, it's common. I've, alhamdulillah, in that sense, I'm grateful to Allah. Our siblings, we've never really ever had anything like that negative, and we've
mashallah.
always been um, reasonably close, and I feel that, I don't know, maybe because when we were young we had like incredibly tough times, and it drew us all together because we had to kind of stick together to just to kind of get through them. But I see, because I see this so often, people with their siblings, there'll be some siblings, they just hate each other, like proper hatred. It's like a sheer, like, oh, pure hatred. And you think, yeah, but it's your own brother and your own sister and your own, but it can get evil, and people do some evil stuff. And what's interesting is, this is what Freud, I believe, referred to as, uh, um, narcissism of proximal differences, I believe, uh, where he's highlighting, and there's the great Maliki legend from Muslim Spain, Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, the great
Yeah, I know
Muslim
him.
scholar. He writes about this in his commentary on Tirmidhi as well, that he says that the love we have for other people, the energy we have, if you like, because it can be love or hate, because I feel sometimes they're just two sides of the same coin, but it's like the energy coming out in a different way. That he said that you find hate, he was speaking about hatred. He said the closer a person is, the stronger and more intense the hatred can be, sorry. So he said, for example, the hatred you can find within siblings or within one qabila clan will be much more intense than the hatred people have for someone from another entirely separate race. Like he said, let's say you had hatred with someone. He said that the closer you get, the energy is almost that much more intense. So he explains this in his commentary.
I mean, in
And I always,
Ibrahim alayhi salam also, so we can get the same example. His father and Ibrahim alayhi salam,
yeah,
they loved
Ibrahim.
each other,
But
but they had an enormous hate.
yeah, but Ibrahim alayhi salam always loved his father. I think his father was kind of obviously upset with him, and because he continues to make dua for his father. It's a fascinating point you remind us of that. Many people miss this. I don't know why, but or it just baffles them. Is people mention the verse that Allah is saying to Ibrahim alayhi salam that don't seek forgiveness for your father. That there is basically a barrier between you and those who've chosen kufr, and don't make dua for him. That people often use this to say, well, you shouldn't make dua for your relatives who are not Muslim, but they maybe don't focus on when Ibrahim's mission has come to an end at later life, and he's a very old man, and he's made the Kaaba, and he calls people for the Hajj, and then he makes a dua. He says, Rabbi ja'alni muqimus salah, that make me somebody who established. And then he says, وَرَبِّنَا اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ, forgive me and my parents.
Yes.
And he's an old man and his father has long died. You see, but a lot of people, for some reason, they don't make the connect here. They don't realize that he did make dua for his dad, who did die as a non Muslim in his old age, and his father had been long dead. So it's a fascinating point. You just reminded me. I thought I'd say it. So okay, but shukran,
Uh,
Muhammad Umar. Oh,
Mufti, another small question, if you don't mind.
चलो
Just,
यार, since
uh, uh,
आप हिंदुस्तान से हैं और दिल है फिर भी दिल है हिंदुस्तानी. So as always, yeah, there's a lot going on in India, by the way. But yeah,
yes,
indeed,
a lot.
a lot,
Why
man.
do we
Just
struggle in Salah after a certain age? When I was in my 11th, I used to pray 5 times a day. But now I even try to get up for Fajr, I just switch off the alarm and just go to sleep again. Why do we struggle as we go older
what?
in Salah?
No, it's look, these things are natural. I will just say what's said in the hadith, and I understand people may have different ways of doing it, and may Allah bless their ways. I would say in the hadith, when the person said that, the Prophet said, look, when you wake up, pray. Khalas.
But,
It's
but still,
it's
there is always a guilt inside you. It's like I used
you're a,
to
there shouldn't be
pray.
a guilt. There should be, you see, Islam isn't really about guilt. Sure, I understand that a person, maybe you're not meeting your expectations, so maybe you're feeling, I can do better, and that's sure, that's wonderful, but it's not to me. I would say, look, carrying guilt around is more, Allahu alam, but it appears to be more a Christian kind of way of looking at things. Islam, you see, if you're asleep, you're asleep. There is a debate between scholars that um, so you take something like an alarm clock now. Now, obviously, in the Prophet's time, they didn't have alarm clocks. So, is it necessary to place an alarm to wake up? So this is a question. So you will find, and people will disagree. And you'll find the great, like the great Maliki legend, student of Ibn Ashur, Sheikh Muhammad al-Lakhwa, who was very great scholar from, Zaytuna and Tunis. And so if you read Al-Fiqh al-Maliki wa Adillatu, in that, Habib ibn Tahir, who's his student, writes it, that I wait there. I'm not. I believe he writes it in there, but it's from Muhammad al-Lakhwa. I think maybe Muhammad ibn Tahir cites it in Fiqh al-Maliki wa Adillatu as well. But the ruling is they say no. There's no obligation in Islam to have an alarm clock. Sure, it may be a good thing. It may be planning, but there's no obligation. So Islam did not say set yourself a reminder. So you may say, well, if I don't have a reminder, then I won't wake up. Sure, and that's that's a point. You won't wake up. But how does that mean setting? So you could say, well, that means I'll miss my prayer. And so I must set a reminder. Now, you see, setting a reminder is fine. Nobody's disagreeing. But does Allah say you must have a reminder to wake up? So this here, sure, some people may say, okay, you need to because otherwise you can't. And other people will say, well, how did people in the past wake up? In fact, they would argue that, you see, when there's something called tathweeb, when you go to remind someone to pray, which many people considered a bid'ah, like Imam Malik condemned that kind of practice, although I'm not saying it has to be condemned, but where you go and you tell somebody again after the adhan, let's go pray. That's actually not something the Prophet taught in Islam. Prophet never called anybody to pray after the adhan. It was just the adhan is done, we don't call anyone. And the adhan wasn't done on speakers, by the way. So there's no tathweeb. We don't go around reminding people. But sure, if a person wants to and they have an understanding, that's their way. It wasn't Imam Malik's way. It wasn't the way of Medina. In the city of the Prophet, it wasn't the tradition. It was called a bid'ah to do something. Imam Malik was obviously very strict. But I get that. I understand other people have said, look, okay, it's not from the Prophet, but it's a nice thing and we want to do it and there's room for it. I'm not kind of saying those people can't do it. They can do it, sure. But the point is that this discussion, how did those people wake up? Now, they woke up because it was their way of life to wake up at that time. You understand? So this
Yeah,
now
exactly.
becomes a debate, because in that day and age, it was the way of life, regardless of Islam. It was the way of life to wake up at dawn, because everybody woke up at dawn. Muslim, non-Muslim, pagan, believer, everybody woke up at dawn.
So it is for
So,
us for a Muslim to wake up before for a dawn.
say
I
that
mean, it
again.
is some sort of compulsion. Is it
So,
compulsion for
so
every
the
Muslim
question is,
to?
now it becomes so that this is where the discourse then becomes a discussion that, okay, so what happens when the day and age has changed in certain parts of the world? In some parts of the world, that is still the way. So when I lived sometime in the village in Pakistan, when I used to do my hifz, I would go to the village. People woke up at dawn. Even those who didn't pray woke up at dawn. They woke up because everybody woke up when there was some light, everybody woke up. And they started going to see their animals and see the crops, and everybody got up. Not everybody prayed, but everybody got up. So it was still a way of life today in some parts of the world. But in developed countries and in cities, it's less so a way of life. The urbanized world doesn't really wake up with dawn. They wake up. So now it's a discussion. Well, okay, do people, okay, should we set an alarm? Sure, set an alarm. Must we set an alarm becomes another question. So it becomes a debate that, and I think it's not so. I would feel it's not that obvious that Allah mandates an alarm clock. I think it's a bit of a jump. Some people may feel it's not a jump. They may feel it's fine. It's a very clear corollary of that logic, and fine, they more power to them. But other ulama would feel that no, you can't make something an obligation unless Allah has made it an obligation in Islam. And Allah has not said, in fact, tathweeb was discouraged in the Prophet's time. You weren't really allowed to go to remind people about prayer in the Prophet's time. Afterwards, sure, people did it. But so, to some people, this is not a natural corollary. It doesn't follow. To others, maybe it does. It's a pick of the thing, whatever you feel. I would say, look, a person tries, and it's your devotion and it's your niyyah that matters. Set the alarm, alhamdulillah, that's great. Do it. It's wonderful. If you miss it, as the hadith says, when you wake up, then pray. And the deen, it has that. And sure, I'm not, I respect those people who say you must set an alarm and you must make sure you get up, and you must, and if you miss it, everybody agrees if you miss it, you make up for it. But I also respect those who say, sure, it's good to set an alarm. It's there is a diversity. We have to understand that in Islam there is a like a glory, a majesty to this, to the kind of understandings, the cogs of what the deen says to us. And we shouldn't react if we hear something that disagrees with us. We should kind of understand that, okay, sure, that's how some people understood it. I disagree with it. That's fine. I go with this. Sure. Or I disagree with that. I go with that. The main thing is none of us are here to impose on anybody else. It is our own journey of Islam, and all in good time. I'll wrap up. Oh, with that, some very final words, because it's very important. The whole India scenario. God, may Allah make things easy. I mean, it's just so much. I've been seeing some of these news. So much is going on. Um,
So
the
much.
yeah, this whole thing, for people who don't know, there's been this whole incident. I mean, there's been quite a few incidents, really. There's been a build-up of a series of events, and with this Udaipur incident, of there was a beheading of a tailor, and two Muslims took responsibility, and they said they did it in the name of Islam, and this has just caused mayhem. And ya salam, people really need to. This is why it's so important that the message of Islam, being a message of mercy, penetrates the hearts of everyone. It is not, Islam is not a it is not a message of mercenaries. You know, killing someone, even if they insult the Prophet, killing someone is wrong.
Yes,
This is
exactly.
yeah,
Mufti, Abu Halaf used to insult the Prophet a lot, but the Prophet never minded him. He just said he is an ignorant guy, leave him. But I don't
yeah,
understand people take very seriously
yeah.
if someone
There's,
insults the Prophet.
you see, in the lifetime of the Prophet, many people insulted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would harm him, they would insult him, and the Prophet, rahmatan lil alamin, would still make
Amazing.
dua for them. Make dua for them. Look how hard that is.
Yeah.
Somebody insults you, and you say, you know what, Ya Allah, give this person more, wellness and goodness in their life. I'll be honest with you. As a human, I would struggle to do that. And that's my ego, and that's
Everybody
my
struggles.
journey. I need to develop on that journey, because, and this is how the Prophet would never have said execute someone because they insulted him. Never. That's
Never again.
not from the message of Islam, and this really needs to be. And then look, in such precarious times in India, where people, there's already this anti-Muslim sentiment.
So much.
To do this is to set a flame, you know, a wildfire that will become uncontrollable. It's
Yes.
Ya salam, wallahi, my heart goes. It really saddens me. I see these things, and I think, may Allah just have mercy, make things easy for these people. May
Amen.
Allah put love and compassion in the hearts of these people. Because India, because before, really, if you look for hundreds and hundreds of years, Muslims, Hindus have coexisted for so long. Sure, occasionally there may have been some little skirmish here and there, but Islam was hardly ever the factor. Maybe as a
Exactly.
one off something happened, people lived with each other. Hindus went and continue to go to Muslim shrines. They continue to
Yeah,
go to, the part of they incorporated even certain Muslim saints, Kabir and all these people into their
yeah,
practices. These are what I'm trying to show is how they just co-evolved. They didn't have this kind of understand. This is very recent. We're seeing this kind of militant and these reactions, and then obviously you're having fascism on both sides of the spectrum. You're getting both ends kind of going towards further, polarized. But may Allah make it easy, man. Make dua for everyone struggling there. I mean. Shukran, Omar, for joining us today.
thanks a lot,
Okay,
Mufti.
we'll catch up. Take care. Stay blessed. Assalamu alaikum.